members of the jury. What is the power of love? The tragedy that ultimately led to the slaughter of James Berry in this case by his girlfriend, the defendant that sits before you, is nothing new. The circumstances as old as time, a woman rebuffed by the person that she loved, overcome by the emotion of her life, did something terrible. Took a life, took a young man out of this world. This case is about love gone awry, the love of this defendant for James Berry that he pulled away from her, which she couldn't accept. She was a woman scorned on November the 17th, 2016. In 1697, William Congreve penned the immortal line, "Heaven has no rage like love to hatred turned, nor hell a fury like a woman scorned." And nothing could be more true in this case, where that defendant, Hellraiser, self-proclaimed, rejected by the person, and unfortunately turned his gaming fantasy into her reality, that he burned in hell. November the 17th, 2016, having been broken up online through a chat for which you have the telephone and the chat to which we'll go through, and the last-ditch effort to reconcile it, that defendant traveled to the home of James Berry, and she stabbed and killed him. No one else. And in this case, she's charged with second-degree murder. An instruction that you have in your packet. I would like to address the elements of second-degree murder at this time. Now you'll see that there are three elements to prove the crime of second-degree murder. One, James Berry is dead. There's not going to be any dispute about that. You've seen the evidence. You've heard the medical examiner. James Berry is no longer with us. The death was caused by the criminal act of that defendant, Melanie Eam. Well, how do you know that, one, Melanie was involved? You look at the physical evidence, and I told you that in this case, you have the cell phone containing the breakup that ultimately would fuel the fire of this defendant. You have the text, you have the chats. And these are in evidence, but I'm going to go through them with you now. You see the text? For Miss Eam, oh, you forgot about me. Nobody's 100%. You just told me that this morning. And then you see the text that you know came from James Berry based on the cell phone extraction, based on the testimony of his friend, Jeffrey J. It might be better for us to split up, to do better, and just focus on ourselves than constantly worrying about each other. Yes, it's something big for the both of us, but honestly, are you and me really happy? The breakup starts. As Melanie Eam, this defendant, starts to reply, yes, I read some stuff about it. And she starts to panic. Well, what do you mean? I thought we were happy before her. I'm not happy with myself. I thought you were happy in the past few days. It starts to unravel. Melanie, I type my feelings better than explain them in real life. I'm not at all happy anymore. I'm really tried my best to accept everything. As she pleads, I tried too, but one little thing made me upset. They go back and forth. She's trying to salvage, again, this love that she has for James Berry, telling him, I've changed so much. I've changed so much. He says, I know you did. But this is something I tried to accept myself, and I tried to recover those feelings from the past 6 months, but they won't come. I don't want to waste your time anymore. She couldn't accept that. You mean waste your time, James. You don't want to waste your time. And by the way, thanks for just leaving me through a lead chat. Not just an act of pulling that love away, but in her mind, an act of disrespect. How dare you just leave me through a lead chat? James tries to explain, I do things better in chats. I'll talk to you in real life. So she leaves immediately. She goes over to James Berry's house. And we'll talk about what happened when she got there. You know that she stabbed and killed Mr. Berry. What does she do immediately after? Let's talk about what happens after. She leaves, she flees to Maryland. Not the act of somebody who was just there, as the defense has put before you, just there when Guy Hand, as the defense has argued, Guy Hand killed his own stepson, which I would submit to you that based on the evidence, there is zero evidence that that took place. But she flees to Maryland. She's left her cell phone at the house because after she stabbed and killed Mr. Berry, she's got no phone. What does she do? Does she call 911? No. Does she try to get help? No. An act that if somebody you love, you just watch somebody you love get stabbed by someone else, stop and get help, call 911. So what does she do? No. She stops at a Walmart, pick up a phone, hits the ATM on her way to Maryland. And you can see the candid reaction on the body cam video of Officer McMullen when he shows up in Maryland. Shows up, knocks on the door, as polite as a police officer can be. He's just doing a welfare check. He really doesn't even know why he's there. And immediately this defendant comes out and immediately starts crying. And you can hear the words that she used. When do I have to come in for the questioning? McMullen has no idea what's going on. Never says anything about a murder, anything about Florida. That defendant knows she's in trouble, knows what she did, knows she's going to have to come in for questioning. She just assumes that he's there for her. And then you have the defendant's confession to Sean Oliver. Now the defense will couch this in their argument as some type of trickery, interrogation technique, something to draw away the reality of the situation, that Sean Oliver went in and he was polite, he was a gentleman, he recorded the conversation, he did nothing to disrespect this defendant. She was sitting in a house 5 states away with 2 police officers in her own home, the home of a family member. No idea she was being recorded. And use your common sense. Because the defense will argue, well, she was scared. Well, who was she scared of? She was scared of Guy Hand. Use your common sense. You're sitting in a safe place with your cousin. You can hear the cousin on tape. He's right there. With the detective telling you, why did you kill Jane? Why did you kill her? We know you did this. Listen to the tone of that conversation. We talked about it in War Dire, the tone, the words used. He's not browbeating her. He's not hitting her with anything. He's not yelling at her, not screaming at her. He's being a gentleman. Now, did he go in? Was he polite? Absolutely. The defense is going to argue, well, that's not right. He shouldn't have done that. Well, what is he supposed to do? Detective Oliver conducted himself the way a police officer should. He gave this young defendant the respect that she deserved, told her, was honest with her, 100%. I'm not going to arrest you today. Now, use your common sense. And the defense has argued common sense to you, and it's one of the 3 things that you rely upon when determining your verdict. 1, the facts, and only the facts and the evidence in this case. You're not allowed to speculate. If you even think that Guy Hand is responsible, that is 100% speculation because there is zero evidence to suggest that. So you only rely on the evidence in this case and the law the judge gives you, and finally your common sense. Common sense says that if the defense has suggested to you is true, that this defendant was standing there at the time Guy Hand killed James Berry, and now this homicide detective is with you, questioning you about, well, tell me what happened. How many times did you stab James? What did you do with the knife? What did you do afterwards? Why did you go over there? Why did it happen? And he tells you then, you know, I'm going to get a warrant when I go back to Florida, and I'm going to arrest you. Common sense says at that point, whoa, wait a second. I didn't stab anybody. I'll tell you exactly who did it. What's the reason not to say it at that point? But she doesn't do that. What she says was, and as you heard in her confession, he broke up with me.
But he said he wanted to talk about it in person, so I went over there. Page 10, I didn't mean to kill him. I thought he would be okay. Page 12, what happened after you struck him? What did you do with the knife? I didn't think I hit him in the left. It didn't seem like that much. I just threw it away and ran. Page 13, what did you do after that? I went to my parents' house. I wanted to tell them I messed up. Page 13, what would happen if they had come out? Would you have told them? I would have told them. Is there anything else that happened in that kitchen that we need to know about? Nope. That's pretty much it. So you admit you went over there, you got upset, and you stabbed him. Is that what you're telling me? Yes. And you're telling me the truth? Yes. Oliver couldn't have been more nice, more polite, and you heard the words of that defendant as she spoke with him. And then Oliver tells her, you're responsible. You know, you're probably looking at jail time. He didn't play games with her. He laid all his cards out on the table. Hey, here's what I got. Here's what happened. Here's what you're looking at. Tell me what happened. He even says to her, look, I'll answer any questions you have. Ask me a question. Now the defense will likely argue too well. In the first few pages of the statement, the confession, she says, well, what about speaking to a lawyer? And as Sean Oliver told you, she was in her own house, she was not in custody, didn't take her into custody, didn't leave with her, didn't arrest her, she wasn't entitled to an attorney. But what did he tell her? Oliver told her, you can hear it on the recording, well, we can get you an attorney. You could have gotten one. What have you been doing the past couple of days? Did you get an attorney? He even told her that, you know, a lawyer's not going to let you tell your side of the story. He was honest with her, honest to a fault with her. And when he said to her, I'll answer any questions you have for me. Just go ahead, ask me a question. And then left without her in custody. Detective Oliver acted in the most professional manner possible. And a portion of the defendant's statement, a 2-minute portion, tells you everything you need to know about Melanie Eam and what happened to James Barrett.
Is this what you're saying? Or is it? It's in here? The shirt?
Yes.
Okay. The powder? Is that the shirt? Okay. So that's it? Did you wash it?
No, I didn't
Okay.
wash it.
You just please leave it at the back. Yeah, that's fine.
It's just a little bit.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I'm trying to say, did you purposely leave yourself on there, or was that an accident?
I just panicked and I guess you could say that. I don't know, I guess both really. It's just like when I was scared, I just jolted out the front door.
And the reason that, what is it, it's been 2 days since we had all my last year. The reason you didn't like turn yourself in or anything.
I'm sorry, I didn't have to say
So that's fine. Just explain to me, people are going to wonder, well, why did she flee Florida? Why did you?
I was just really scared. I wanted to get some advice. And I came here to my aunt, and my aunt called my cousin and spoke to me, and they all said it's best to turn myself in. I asked them, what should I do?
Okay. How many times did you stab her?
I don't remember. It's not like I counted, but
More than once.
perhaps I...
Okay.
Oh, I don't know, like, what do you mean, like, where it got him, or, like...
No, just like where you made a motion with a knife toward him.
I don't really remember, but it didn't last too long because he ran away.
I'm just confirming you got the knife out of the drawer.
Yeah.
How long did you have the knife before you think you, or was it just like that, you grabbed the knife and went and stabbed?
I just missed it.
I see. And do you regret it?
Of course not.
I have to ask, he's not...
How many times did you stab him? I don't know, it's not like I counted. Do you regret it? Of course I do. How fast was it? It was instantaneous. She's scared. She goes, she tells, as she just said to Detective Oliver, I came up here for advice. I came up here to talk to my cousin. What do they tell me to do? They told me to turn myself in. Those aren't the words of somebody who just watched while somebody else slaughtered James Berry. Now you also can look towards the forensic evidence in this case. Blood, confirmed blood. You heard from the DNA analyst this morning, Ms. Anderson, confirmed blood on the defendant's shirt, in the defendant's car. You've also seen photographs of the blood from the gear shift. Blood still red in color. You know that the blood is fresh. You saw a photograph of the victim in the defendant's car flipped over. The act of a person so angry with James Berry, she didn't even want to look at it again. Turned his picture over, put it in the car door. Blood drops near the patio where her phone was left. No reason for this defendant to leave that house and leave her phone there, not go back to get it, to flee the state, to go to Maryland. The only reason to do that, she's guilty. Now there's zero evidence, as I told you before, of anybody else committing this crime. Jeffrey J., as you'll recall his testimony, he said that once he heard what was going on, he was actually asleep on the floor. He starts to tend towards Mr. Berry. He says he turns and he sees Guy Hand coming out of his bedroom. And you've seen the photographs where Guy Hand's bedroom was. He said he's got no blood on him. He looked like he had no idea what was going on. Consistent with Guy Hand's testimony that he was awoken out of sleep, hearing what's going on, rushes into his stepson's side, tries to perform life-saving measures. Now the defense is going to say, well, he moved the knife and he didn't perform CPR the right way. Got to be him. Which is absolutely ridiculous. It tortures logic. It's a red herring. It's not supported by any evidence whatsoever. In a moment of chaos, this man, rushing to the aid of his stepson, moved the knife. Big deal. In a moment of crisis, as his stepson lay sloping on the ground, he picked him up and put him on the bed. The defense is characterized as some sort of faking life-saving measures. Like Guy Hand said to myself, you know, if I put him on the bed, CPR is not going to work. I can pretend to do CPR, make it look like I'm really trying to save his life, and then he can die. You got to use your common sense. If it doesn't make sense, it didn't happen like that. And in this case, absolutely didn't happen that way. Guy Hand has no motive, no anger. There's no evidence of any contention between the two. No evidence that they had a fight. No evidence of a bad relationship. Nothing to suggest Guy Hand is at all responsible for the death of James Berry. The defendant, however, has all the motive, blood on the shirt, flees the scene, confession. All the evidence points in that direction, right there. Now, I started my argument by telling you that this case is about the power of love. And I said that there was two types of love involved. I want to point to the second as one of the strongest indicators of the truthfulness of Guy Hand and to the guilt of this defendant. Sophocles stated that sons are the anchors to a mother's life. There has never been, nor will there ever be, anything quite so special as the love between a mother and her son. These are bonds that last a lifetime. These are bonds that reach beyond the bounds of the human experience. A mother will fight to the death for the protection of your son. Whatever else happens, you're not going to harm my child. Nicola Berry, unimpeached witness. I believe defense counsel asked her two questions. No inconsistencies in her testimony. Not impeached in any way.
Stay 10 minutes.
Thank you. No reason to believe. No reason for you not to believe everything that she has stated. And the defense would have you believe that when she said she went to sleep with Guy Hand next to her and woke up and he was in the bed at the time they heard the commotion, and that she saw him rush out to the aid of James Berry, that she lied to the police, that she lied to the attorneys, that she lied to the jury. and that she is covering up for somebody that murdered her only son. And that absolutely perverts common sense. Because members of the jury, no mother on this earth is going to lie to protect the murderer of her child. I submit to you, no parent alive is going to lie if they even think that another person has murdered their child. Nicola Berry told you the truth, 100% accurate, supported by the evidence that Guy Hand was in bed with her. He had nothing to do with the death of James Berry. You would either have to believe that she lied to cover up the murder of her only son, or that somehow Guy Hand did this crime, washed himself clean, because you have the pictures from the bedroom. There's no blood in the bed. There's no blood going into the bed. There's no blood on the floor. There's no blood in the towels. There's no blood in the sinks in the bedroom. There's no blood in the sinks in the kitchen. We know he has blood on him when the police get there. So magically, the blood goes away. He jumps back into bed, pretends like he's asleep, hears the commotion, gets up, fakes the CPR. We're chasing unicorns. It's not common sense. It doesn't make sense because it's not true. The truth is, what you know, what's supported by the evidence, is that defendant stabbed James Berry. She did it, and you know it. Now I want to talk to you about some instructions that you have. First, excusable homicide. Sometimes these can get a little confusing. But you have an excusable homicide instruction. Justifiable homicide has to do with self-defense. This is not a self-defense case. You can disregard that instruction. The excusable homicide instruction has 3 circumstances where killing a human being may be excusable, but let's just examine them. 1, all 3 of them require accident or misfortune. Well, this is not an accident. It is certainly unfortunate, and it's certainly a tragedy, but this is a crime. This is not an accident. What she did was not an accident. But the first circumstance, accident or misfortune, by doing any lawful act, by lawful means, using ordinary caution without any unlawful intent, fails. She went over there, ticked off about being broken up, was going to confront James Berry. She got angry, stabbed him. Doesn't qualify under 1. Under number 2, accident or misfortune, again, not an accident or misfortune case. In the heat of passion upon sudden and sufficient provocation. Okay, accident or misfortune by sudden provocation, that's when you come home from a hard day's work, you open up your door, you see somebody molesting your kid, you jump on him as you fall on the floor, the guy breaks his neck. You reacted. It was a sudden bang, bang play. This is not what happened in this case. She was broken up with, and you can tell from the cell phone, which you'll have this cell phone. You can take a look at it if you want. But if you tap on the individual chats, and I'll just show you, they'll tell you what time the messages came in. Okay, if you just do that, you'll see that the last set of messages came in right about 9:08. James Berry's murdered 3 hours later. She's got a lot of time to think about what she's going to do. Is the evidence suggest that she went over there with the intent to kill? The evidence suggests she went over there with the intent to argue. Okay, this was not a sudden act. This is not a bang, bang play. It doesn't qualify under 2. Under 3, again, doesn't qualify accident or misfortune by sudden combat. A dangerous weapon is not used. A knife in this case is used. Dangerous weapon doesn't qualify. I want to look now at the second-degree murder instruction. There are some instructions at the bottom that are called heat of passion, and that substitutes when a person, it will basically take it down to a lesser charge if you find that the crime is committed with in the heat of passion, and then it negates depraved mind. But again, there's 5 elements that have to be proven. Okay, all 5 of these elements have to be present. But again, it fails on every single one. 1, there must have been a sudden event that suspended the exercise and judgment of an ordinary, reasonable person. These all require ordinary, reasonable people. Okay? A reasonable person would have lost normal self-control and be driven by a blind, unreasoning fury. Oh, there's not a reasonable amount of time for a reasonable person to cool off.
You know that reasonable people don't go over, grab a knife, and plunge it into their boyfriend's chest. That's the act of an absolute unreasonable person. She had plenty of time to cool off. She had over 3 hours. Go talk to somebody. Go talk to a friend. If you want to go talk to James, do it in a civil manner. She went over there with a blind and unreasoning fury, not the act of a reasonable person. So this is not a heat of passion murder. This is a second-degree murder. It's a murder that occurred from an act eminently dangerous, indicating her depraved mind. Her depraved mind. And she did something out of ill will. She did it out of hatred. She did it out of spite, being broken up with, especially over a text. And by striking somebody with a knife, even though she told Detective Oliver, I didn't mean to kill him. You took a 9-inch blade and plunged it into somebody's chest. What did you think was going to happen? That's why she's guilty as charged. Now finally, I want to address something that we talked about in jury selection, and you have in your instructions. This is very important. This case must not be decided for anyone or against anyone because you feel sorry for anyone or are angry, and it must not be influenced by feelings of bias, prejudice, or sympathy. Members of the jury, I started with this in jury selection because I understand that you're going to look at this defendant, a young female. And I ask people right from the get-go, do you feel sympathy? Can you put it out of your mind? And now you understand, now you see why. Because the state has elements of the crime to prove. This has nothing to do with sympathy. This has nothing to do with who Melanie Eam is. The judge has told you that the jury are the judge of the facts. You decide whether the state has proven its case beyond a reasonable doubt. The judge will take into consideration matters for sentencing. That is for the court. Bias, prejudice, and sympathy in no way go back to that deliberation room. She is a defendant, whether she is male or female. Doesn't matter what race she is, doesn't matter how old she is. Remember I talked about it in jury selection. You rob a bank, pull the trigger, felony murder, 95-year-old grandmother, doesn't matter. She's here because of what she did, not because of who she is. Thank you. So now you have to execute the duty that we have sworn you, we have entrusted you to come in here and do. You have to follow the law, which requires no sympathy for that defendant, no sympathy for the victim. You're here to do a job. Has the state proven its case? And when you ask yourself that question, there's going to be a resounding yes. Melanie Eam is guilty as charged, guilty of second-degree murder. To find her guilty of anything less, of anything else, would be a miscarriage of justice. There is zero evidence on this record from that witness stand in those items of evidence and that you've heard suggest anything else. So you must go back and find her guilty as charged. You have to follow the law. For 200 years, we've all agreed to follow the law. Anything less is a miscarriage of justice. You have to find her guilty because it's right, because it's just, and because it is the only verdict supported by the evidence in the law. I want to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for your time and attention.